Welcome back to our channel where we love nothing more than settling in with a warm cup of tea to discuss the latest happenings in Port Charles. Today is a truly beautiful day to dive into the rich, ongoing drama of General Hospital. The canvas is bursting with secrets, and we have so much to unpack together. As someone who has spent years watching from my living room but is only now putting my thoughts into writing, I must say that the upcoming 2 weeks of General Hospital, spanning from April Hai Mui Bai to May Tarm, look absolutely breathtaking. The stakes in Port Charles have rarely felt this high, and the emotional currents running beneath the surface of these storylines are incredibly compelling. I have always believed that the best soap opera storytelling relies not just on shocking events, but on the deep historical character motivations that drive those events. Right now, we are seeing so many beloved characters pushed to their absolute limits, and I am genuinely fascinated by the choices they are making. Let us begin by discussing the increasingly dark path of Ethan. The spoilers reveal that Ethan will actually offer to eliminate Sidwell. While some viewers might find this proposition shocking, I personally believe it is a brilliant and entirely justified character progression. We must remember the grim fate that his mother, Holly Sutton, suffered because of Sidwell. Ethan is a man grieving and seeking vengeance, and his willingness to cross such a severe moral line shows just how deeply he has been wounded. I appreciate that the writers are not shying away from the darker aspects of Ethan's grief. However, this situation becomes even more complicated as Sidwell is seen having a conversation with young James West. This interaction is bound to send shivers down the spine of anyone watching, especially Cassius. Speaking of Cassius, his anxiety over Sidwell speaking to James is a fascinating psychological study. Cassius has been masquerading as the late Nathan West, a deception that I find both incredibly cruel and captivating to watch. Seeing Cassius grow nervous reminds us that no matter how calculating or soulless a villain may be, their house of cards is always vulnerable to a single unpredictable breeze. I suspect that Cassius realizes his control over the situation is slipping. He has manipulated Britt Westburn and planted terrible ideas in Sidwell's head about Lucas Jones, but a simple conversation involving James could be the thread that unravels his entire fraudulent existence. I am eager to see his facade crack. Meanwhile, on a completely different front, we have a gripping investigative storyline unfolding. Curtis, ever the diligent and proactive investigator, is narrowing his focus on a suspect for the hit-and-run accident. It appears Curtis is determined to prove that the damage to the railing was caused by Isaiah's SUV. From a logical standpoint, Curtis's deduction makes perfect sense given the clues he has, yet as viewers we hold the dramatic irony of knowing the real truth. It was our very own Brooklyn who scraped her car, setting off a chain reaction of panic and deception. I cannot help but feel a profound sense of sympathy for Brooklyn. She is carrying a terrible burden of guilt, especially as she continues to lie to her wonderful husband, Harrison Chase. Of course, Brooklyn is not facing this crisis alone, for better or worse. Tracy has stepped in, insisting that she will handle the repairs and fiercely protecting her granddaughter. Tracy's involvement is a classic Quartermaine maneuver, and Jane Elliott plays these moments with such magnificent authority. While I do not condone covering up a crime, I completely understand Tracy's fierce maternal instinct to shield her family from ruin. The Quartermaines have a long, storied history of burying scandals to protect their own, and Tracy is merely honoring that legacy. However, I fear that Tracy's confidence is misplaced. These cover-ups always end in disaster on General Hospital, and the emotional toll this secret is taking on Brooklyn's marriage is a ticking time bomb that I am watching with bated breath. And plunge back we must, because Dante's investigations are about to collide in the most spectacular fashion. Dante is currently juggling multiple cases, completely unaware that the answers to his questions lie within his own family. If Curtis successfully pushes the narrative that Isaiah was driving the car in the hit and run, it could inadvertently expose the fact that Isaiah visited Rocco's house. This is the brilliant, tragic irony of Port Charles. One investigation always bleeds into another. If Isaiah's movements are brought to light, the timeline of the night Cullum was shot will be scrutinized. I firmly believe this will corner Lulu, leaving her with absolutely no choice but to confess the agonizing truth to Dante. She will have to look the man she loves in the eye and admit that their son is a shooter, and that she has been orchestrating a massive cover-up to protect him. The emotional fallout of that eventual conversation will be monumental. Dante is a man of the law, but he is also a devoted father. Watching him grapple with his duty as a detective versus his love for his son and his complicated feelings for Lulu will be a masterclass in acting. I cannot wait to see how these incredibly talented actors navigate such heartbreaking material. The road ahead for our favorite characters is paved with danger, deceit, and impossible choices, and I am so thrilled to be sharing my thoughts with all of you as this magnificent story continues to unfold. The tension is equally palpable between Michael and his ex-wife Willow. The spoilers indicate that Michael is going to arrange a meeting with Willow, but I strongly suspect this is nothing more than a cunning trap. Michael has a well-documented history of exerting control over the women in his life, and his current determination to dictate who is allowed around their children is bringing out his most manipulative traits. It seems he is hatching a plan and may even share his strategy with Jacinda Bracken. I find Michael's behavior here quite concerning. While he may believe he is acting in the best interest of his children by trying to remove Jacinda, his methods are deeply unsettling. Willow, however, has much bigger problems to worry about than Michael's controlling nature. She is currently trapped in a horrifying dilemma of her own making. The revelation that she is the one who shot Drew is a twist that I am still processing. Her situation is about to become even more precarious thanks to a well-meaning gesture from Elizabeth. Elizabeth is reportedly going to provide Drew with additional communication tools, an idea she previously suggested to Nina Reeves. While Elizabeth is simply trying to help a recovering man regain his voice, she is inadvertently handing Drew the very tools he might use to identify Willow as his shooter. The agonizing suspense of watching Willow squirm as Drew slowly regains his ability to communicate is masterful television. I truly wonder how long Willow can keep this massive, destructive secret hidden. As if that were not enough family drama, Lulu is about to receive some absolutely infuriating news. It appears that Nathan, our resident imposter, Cassius, will confess to Lulu that her son, Rocco, has already told Britt about shooting Ross Cullum. My heart aches for Lulu in this scenario. She has done everything in a mother's power to protect her child from the consequences of a terrible mistake, and to learn that the secret has leaked must be devastating. Furthermore, knowing that Britt holds this explosive information adds an incredible layer of anxiety to the narrative. Britt is currently carrying a tremendous emotional burden, and it is highly likely she will need to confide in someone. I strongly suspect that Britt might turn to her longtime confidant, Brad. If Britt reveals the truth to Brad, the circle of people who know that Jason is falsely taking the fall for Rocco will widen dangerously. Jason's willingness to sacrifice his own freedom for the sake of a child is entirely in keeping with his stoic, heroic nature, but it is deeply frustrating to watch him prepare to suffer for a crime he did not commit. If Britt unburdens herself, it could be the catalyst that eventually clears Jason's name, but it could also expose Cassius's manipulative grip on the situation. The interconnected nature of these secrets is precisely why I love this show so much. One whispered confession can alter the destinies of a dozen characters. Elsewhere in Port Charles, the stakes are rising for Carly. As Jocelyn Jacks continues to bravely, perhaps foolishly, gather new information about the dangerous Cullum, Lucas is going to lash out at Carly. I am incredibly curious about what triggers Lucas's anger. Could it be that he drops by Carly's house unexpectedly and discovers that Valentin is the new man in her life? Or worse, could he discover that Carly is actively hiding Valentin? Carly's alliance with Valentin is a tremendously risky gamble, one that I have felt uneasy about since it began. She is playing with fire, and the flames are about to reach the attic. This brings us to the looming threat of Brennan. The spoilers tease that Brennan is on the verge of a disturbing discovery. It seems highly probable that Carly's luck is finally going to run out, and Brennan will catch her hiding Valentin in her home. The week of May Born to May Tam promises to showcase the terrifying fallout of this revelation. Brennan is not a man to be trifled with, and if he realizes that Carly has been sheltering his enemy, his wrath will be swift and merciless. I fear for Carly's safety, but I must admit that she walked into this dangerous situation with her eyes wide open. The impending confrontation between Brennan, Valentin, and Carly is sure to be some of the most riveting television we have seen amidst all this heavy, life-altering drama. I am so grateful that the writers are providing us with a beautiful moment of levity and joy. On May Born, the wonderful Michael James Scott will bring the magic of Broadway to Port Charles with a musical performance at the Savoy. Seeing Gio and Emma reunite with Michael after their unforgettable trip to New York City will be a sheer delight. It is so important for a soap opera to balance the dark, intense storylines with moments of genuine warmth, romance, and artistic beauty. I am very much looking forward to sitting back and enjoying the music, taking a brief, much-needed breath before plunging back into the suspense